go. So there you have it. More stories, not only from the local perspective, but away from Uganda. Now let me check on the team and see how they are doing. I'll start with Chantal Oliver Kaninda, though I wouldn't wish to start with her because of what she wants to set out to me. Good morning, Chantal.
Good morning, Sonko. How are you feeling? I'm really concerned.
I'm feeling okay.
Are you well?
I am well.
Slept well? Welcome to the week. We start again. It's a beautiful week, yeah?
Yeah, and it is. It's going to be.
Well, good morning, our dearest viewer. Thank you for watching UBC Television and thank you for joining us. My name is Chantal Olive Akaninda, ready for the new week. Yesterday, there was a very hard knock on my door and only to check, and it was the enumerators. Finally. I was very intrigued by some of the questions asked. The lady asked me, do you hear voices sometimes? And I was like, wait, what?
Mental health.
Yes, she's like, now we are getting into the mental health aspect. And the question that came to my mind was, if any individual has mental health challenges, if they're fortunate enough to recognize that they have them, if they can't go seek help, do you think they're going to tell you they hear voices? Do you think they're going to be truthful? That's the thing that came to my mind, because if you're collecting data like that, you're most likely not going to get accurate information. You're asking me, do you get anxious sometimes? My friend, everyone gets anxious. The landlord might call and you get anxious. But anyway, yes, yesterday I was counted, though the process was a bit flawless. I tried to have an interaction with her to ask her how it has been and some of the challenges they have faced. And it is indeed true that there was a bit of malfunction, a bit of glitches, the delays here and there, the payments for some. They were promised refunds of the 20,000 transport after that 9 days of training. They did not get that kind of that money. They got 10,000 Uganda shillings. She also mentioned that the gadgets they're using were supposed to come in during the training or even before, but they came on the last day of the training. They didn't get well acquainted. Signing in was hard. So I got first-hand information on how challenging this process has been, and also the good side of it being that they're now able to get some of this work done. She also mentioned they did not get to every single place, and just like Yubo said, we have a few more days. So how do you do this? Go to your local council chairperson, over to you, Sonko, to your local council chairperson, and make sure that they know that you are not counted, and schedule for them to come and actually take your information.
There was a neighborhood yesterday I visited in Deje where the chairperson was passing through the area, reminding all of the Ugandans not to leave because the enumerators were in place and he didn't want anyone uncounted. So I think it's high time I also went to the LC1 chairperson to see when the enumerators will be coming our way so that I can prepare accordingly. We have more 5 days now, more 6 days to ensure that we are all counted, but I'm yet to see one enumerator close to my doorstep. But that aside, let me check on Olive Monica Najuma, who is elegantly dressed in a yellow. I should say, I don't know whether it's yellow. I may be wrong, though. Good morning, Monica.
No, you're not colorblind. It is definitely yellow.
For today.
For today, yeah, he's spot on. But good morning, Jerome. I'm happy to see you. But I saw you taking some meds. Why?
I said no.
Are you having some problems with your heart?
No, not the heart. I was actually taking a deworming syrup just before I went on air.
Okay.
When I went to the pharmacy to pick it, I was asked when was the last time I dewormed. I said last year. And then the pharmacist told me you're supposed to deworm twice a year. That is 6 months, every after 6 months. So I think it had taken me close to 9 months without deworming. And I feel happy for myself. Though taking it early this morning, it is not because of Arsenal.
I actually thought that you got a thorough beating yesterday.
No.
And he
the
decided
expectations
to take
were high, but we
some
never met them.
medications for your heart. But you know what's exciting about all of this? It is that Ruben also got himself out of a bind because he had on air made
the industrial and then the legal. Industrial is not generally enforced directly, but legal is enforced directly, as we'll be able to learn later.
Okay, let me get to Ms. Josephine Nachayune to fully understand legal metrology. Now, he has mentioned something to do with a law that ban or that bars one from using wrong measurements. So to fully put us in a proper context of legal metrology, what should my viewer understand?
Thank you, sir. Legal metrology, as the name states, it's a law enforcement of measurements. We are enforcing the Weights and Measures Act, that's Chapter 103. We are enforcing accuracy of all weighing and measuring instruments which are used in trade. These include these traditional weighing instruments like the counter machines used at retail shops or at the butchers. It includes also fuel stations at fuel outlets. We also enforce the measurements of prepackaged goods. Those that are packed in the absence, whatever is packed in the absence of the consumers. In factories, we make sure we go there and see whether they measure rightly. If someone declares like 500 grams, is it 500 grams? Is the consumer being cheated? Is the pack being cheated by overpacking? So that's all about legal metrology. And legal metrology is operated in 5 regional offices for these traditional weighing instruments. We have one in Kampala, which is located at Katwe Quality Chemicals House. Then we have one in Lila, Mbale, Mbarara, and Jinja.
Okay. And now let's look at celebrating World Metrology Day 2024 and the theme for this year. I don't know, I'll start with Mr. Mubangizi. In regards to this year's celebrations, what are we looking at on this 20th day of May, this year's theme as well?
Thank you so much. In this year, the theme is measuring today for a sustainable tomorrow.
Okay.
What do they mean? They are actually telling us to plan using measurements. When you are planning for tomorrow's life, you are looking at the social economic development, you are looking at our health and safety, you are looking at trade, local and international, you are planning for it. Can you use measurements to make sure you do proper planning? And why do we say use measurements? It's because the moment you do accurate measurements of what is going on now, you can easily predict what will happen tomorrow. You may have seen what is happening in what we call climate change, where the global temperature is increasing. If you don't monitor by measuring properly, you may not know what will hit you like 100 years to come. So the moment you start measuring the temperature, you're measuring all the parameters that you are supposed to know to plan, then it helps you to plan properly and evaluate and reduce risks that are coming from the element that you are measuring. When you are trying to check somebody's health, to check the pressure, check the temperature, you are preventing them from getting sick or to get health problems tomorrow. So that measurement is important because you are not only preventing what's happening now, but you are also ensuring that tomorrow and the other day and the next day, life is going on more smoothly. If you don't measure, you will not understand what the implications are.
Okay. And of course, let's also look at the activities and the importance of scientific and industrial metrology in the Uganda National Bureau of Standards and in regards to calibration and others.
At Uganda National Bureau of Standards, actually UNBS is what we call the National Metrology Institute for Uganda. Every country in the world is supposed to have a National Metrology Institute or an institute responsible for activities of measurements to ensure that the measurements in the country are accurate for the purpose. If you measure wrongly, you will cause problems. So you should be able to measure accurately so that the results of your measurements are used by decision makers to make right decisions. So in scientific metrology, we are interested in making sure that Uganda's measurements are traceable to international measurements through the International Organization for Measurements. We call it the International Bureau of weights and measures. We also have another one called the International Organization for Legal Metrology, which handles legal metrology at international level. So we want to make sure that measurements in Uganda are traceable to that level. And how do we do it? We liaise with other global countries and try to do measurements on similar, say, items. If you get an article and you measure it in Uganda, another one measures it in Kenya, another one measures it in the United Kingdom, and you compare your results, you will know whether you are measuring properly or not. And we call that inter-laboratory comparisons. Then we also have what we call the measurement capabilities for the national metrology institutions, to show that what you are measuring in your country is understood in other countries. This is important because we trade globally. When you are measuring things you are exporting, they need to trust your measurements so that they can easily say, if you say, like my sister said, this package you are sending is 5 kilograms each, they don't have to worry. They know that your National Metrology Institute has checked it, so it is meeting the standards. So in the industrial metrology, we make sure that measurements done in the industrial setup, industrial sectors, it can be manufacturing, other value addition, agro-processing, etc., that the measurements are meeting standards. How do we do that? We have what we call the highest measurement standards in the country. They are housed at Uganda National Bureau of Standards. Those measurements standards are solid items. Unlike the standards which we develop, which are documents, this one is a solid. For instance, I can have a 1 kilogram standard. The Uganda's 1 kilogram standard, which is the highest in accuracy, is housed at Uganda National Bureau of Standards. We call it like E1 standard. Now, every other kilogram in Uganda will be trying to compare with that one. So what we call a calibration chain. Okay. That calibration chain means if you are in a shop and you are selling meat, you are using those stones which you use for weighing. Then my sister will come to you and check whether those stones are meeting the right standard, and she will be using another set of stones. They are also standards. Now her set of stones or weights will be checked against the other one I talked about, the one which is the highest accuracy, so that we have accuracy chain from our topmost at UNBS to the lowest in the market. The same in industry. When you talk of, say, temperature, at UNBS we have the most accurate temperature measurement instrument. So we want people in factories, in hospitals, to be compared with that one. And we use what we call calibration to make sure they are accurate. In simple terms, calibration is checking your measuring instrument to see if it is measuring accurately, and if it is not measuring accurately, we restore the accuracy using our standards so that you are measuring properly. That's what calibration means. It's really a scientific activity. We get our measurement standard, get yours, and do a number of checks, then a number of adjustments until it is measuring properly. So we do that in mass, we do that in pressure, we even do that for timers. You know, these timers which measure the clocks and whatnot. We do that for force, we do that for many other areas.
Okay, let's look at the legal side of things. What happens if the metrology activities are never implemented or are not being implemented?
There will be loss in some businesses. Some businesses will collapse due to wrong measurements or inaccurate measurements, and these will lose income. At the end of the day, business will fall out, and also government will not be able to get the required tax. Then also, if measurements are not implemented as per legal metrology requirements, say for energy meters or electricity meters, this will lead to high tariffs, like to industrialists, which will result into high production costs, and still these industrials will lose out in business. And still, measurements are a basis for full collection of government taxes. Say for imports, as truck for fuel coming, the valuation of taxes is based on the measurements made by legal metrology. So if they are wrong measurements, there will be undervaluing of the taxes, and this will lead to loss of taxes for the government and to the nation at large.
Okay. And then what happens, just in case, let's say someone has been given false measurements?
False.
How do, yeah, or let's say, you know, he has given an example. You've gone to, let's say, buy a kilogram of meat and someone is using 800 grams. Of course, you're going to lose out on, you know, on the value for money that you would have got as a customer. But then how do I run now in a situation whereby maybe I am importing goods, or I have bought goods from, let's say, an industry, and they've given me wrong measurements? How do I win a case, or how do I even report to the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, or even in the courts of law?
We have a customer care desk where you report your complaint. Then that complaint is forwarded to the respective department, and investigations are started at that moment. Yeah.
So do we expect, because I'm feeling in such a situation, this is a very wonderful topic of discussion that we are having today. But for the viewer out there, many of them don't even know if at all you're given wrong measurements, you can even report. Has there been an element of awareness from the Uganda National Bureau of Standards to ensure that at least this is something that the common Ugandan is able to understand?
Yes, we always do awareness sessions through our PR department. We always move to different parts of the country and do this awareness stakeholders engagement on how, in case you are cheated, how do you report, which number do you call, so that you are helped and you get value for your money, or you get justice at the end of the day.
Okay, and let's now get into you know, the side of scientific metrology and industrial metrology. What happens if these metrology activities are not implemented?
Thank you so much for that question. I would actually like our listeners to be very attentive on this, because we have for a long time not understood the importance of metrology, and yet the consequences are very dire. The consequences of not enforcing or following methodology will result into false or wrong measurements. Now I'll give you a number of examples. In manufacturing, if the measurements are not accurate or are false in a way, the manufacturer will produce substandard products. And you know what substandard products means? If it is food and he measures the heavy metals wrongly, or measures the bacteria which is harmful wrongly, he will produce a product or a food which can harm the consumer, which can cause sickness, which can cause injuries in manufacturing. So manufacturers must have the equipment calibrated so that they are always measuring rightly. If you go in international trade, if you don't do calibration of your equipment and you are trading internationally, you will send goods which are actually not conforming, and it will result into a ban of our exports. That will fundamentally affect our economy negatively, and we may end up, you remember the other fish ban? The fish ban was caused by failure to measure what we call excess pesticide residues that were being found in the fish we were exporting, because we are not doing the measurements properly. So that is another issue. Then when you look at the laboratories, testing laboratories use testing equipment which must be calibrated frequently to make sure that what they are measuring is meeting standards. Imagine you are a business person, you have imported 2 containers of goods, and they are being tested to see if they are meeting standards before they are accepted into the country. And then they use wrong measurements, and they say your products are failing. Yet it is their measurements which are what? Which are wrong. You will cause an importer to lose because of your wrong testing methods or testing measurements. So we make sure that the testing laboratories calibrate the equipment to make sure that we give right judgment of right products. You should not pass what is failing, and you should not fail what is passing. We must have the measurements done correctly. You look at the health sector. Like I told you, actually, it is unfortunate that failure to understand the impact of measurements in health sector has caused a lot of problems. I know some people who have gone to hospitals and they check their pressure. You know this thing they put on the arm and measure the pressure?
Yes.
And the nurse says, hey, your pressure is too high. I want having how we reached here. Your pressure is too high, you must immediately start on medicine. And they start giving somebody medicine for pressure when actually he has no problem with pressure, but it is the measurement device they are using that was not correct because it was not calibrated. So you get somebody having a problem. Actually, I have a case of a neighboring country where, do you know these incubators where they put premature babies? Premature babies are kept in what called an incubator and must be kept at a temperature which is around 37 degrees, which is the normal temperature for a human being. Now, in one of our neighboring countries, there was an incubator which was indicating that is reading 37 degrees when the actual temperature inside the incubator was approaching 40 degrees, around 39.8. But the reading was showing 37. So many babies died because the incubator was not calibrated to read the right measurement. So you can see the importance of metrology and calibration in the health sector and very many other areas. Another sensitive place is in the transportation. I can give you an example of aviation in airlines. You see, when you are driving a car and you get a problem with the tires, you remove the tire and you put another tire properly. When you are putting the tire, you know how you do the, what do you call that equipment? The spanner. You see a mechanic putting a spanner tighten, even putting the foot and tightening seriously on the what? The tire to the what? To the vehicle. If you do that kind of tightening on the tire of the aeroplane can crash anytime. It will be landing and it gets difficult and crashes. So the tire of the aeroplane is tightened by another type of spanner, which we call a torque wrench, which must be measured to a specific measurement so that the tire is tightened to a specific measurement, not just like you do it for the car. So that one must be calibrated to be having the right measurement. If you don't do it, you will see planes crashing. You have seen what we call altimeters, also in planes. They measure the altitude where the plane is. If it measures wrongly and you are at the, it says you are at 4,000 feet, when you are just at 100 feet, it will cause crashes because it will be too low. It will be showing you a wrong measurement of the altitude. That's how dangerous and how important metrology can be. So if we don't put our resources in metrology, we will be causing more problems. And in many other areas, agriculture, these fertilizers you see, if they put wrong quantities, which are measured wrongly, they will burn the plants. If you weigh badly when you are putting them instead of these grams into the pump and you put more grams, you burn your plants. So measurements in our day-to-day life are as important as that. That's how we need to put emphasis on scientific and industrial metrology, as well as legal metrology in our day-to-day life, so that we are sure we are using measurements which are accurate, and by doing that, all the sensitive measurements, the equipment must be calibrated. If they are used for trade purposes, they must be verified by our weights and measures department.
Okay. And Ms. Josephine, are there any activities that normally occur and the importance of legal metrology on the side of UNBS in regards to verifications and everything? What normally happens?
Yeah, legal metrology, we do verification of those traditional equipment, as I earlier stated, like the counter machines, the spring balances, and these are done at our regional offices. We have 5 regional offices. Okay. Then we also control pre-packages. Those are the packs that are packed in the absence of the consumers in factories to ensure value for money and also to ensure that sufficient labeling is indicated on those packages. Then we also do verification of electricity meters. This one we do for both the new meters that are coming in before installation and those ones already installed. We do that in collaboration with the WOMEME, ERA, and some other electricity bodies. We also do verification of fuel pumps at the fuel outlets. This one we do every after 6 months. You know, we are dealing with machines. They can alter at any time. So we do that every after 6 months to ensure that they comply and the dealers or the owners don't incur losses or the customers are not cheated. We also do type approval. This is where we ensure that the weighing scale, before it's being put for trade to the market, the mode of that equipment is first approved by our department as Legal Metrology to ensure it has all the requirements that are required for all the weighing instruments required to be used in trade. We also do verification of aviation meters at EJAF. This is Entebbe Joint Aviation Facility. You know, this is a sensitive area whereby anything that comes wrong with the fuel taken by any jet, it can cause issues, and we can face a lot of problems as far as the
And on that
the
issue,
account is
you know,
concerned.
on the matter to do with the issues that you normally face, I wonder what are some of the common cases that have been reported, you know, from that side of things, from the legal side?
From the legal, on the side of aviation or general?
General.
We have had the issues of underweight bread and underweight flour. Like people pack, if they declare like 50 kilograms, some find like 48 kilograms. This is an issue even in cement. But normally, since we normally deal with the factories, the packers themselves, we also need to do the market surveys to find out whether there is any difference. Is this true? Is there any malpractice that is done between the transportation from the factories to the distribution centers? Then we also have issues of fuel, like low fuel given to customers who have had those complaints, but we always investigate those complaints and find a way how to make our customers satisfied.
Okay, and looking at today, which is the World Metrology Day, let's look at the activities. Do we have any sort of activities that are going to happen that the Uganda National Bureau of Standards has put up to say we are celebrating the day? Normally, what happens during such a day on your side of celebrations?
Ordinarily, like we said, this is a commemoration and a celebration of World Metrology Day, and we are supposed ideally to be making it known that meteorology is an important science and activity for the country, so that everybody is aware. In an ideal situation, we would even be having some demonstration of activities at different areas, at hospitals, at factories, or in just like in the ground where you meet in a stadium and you show people what meteorology is and what we do. Unfortunately, we are having a big challenge currently of funding. I don't know whether the government has not yet understood the importance of meteorology, but once they understand the importance, I think they should put some extra money into that so that we prevent what I have talked about. Now, at the moment, the funds which are available can only afford us to do sensitization using the media, like we are doing right now. We'll be doing it through newspapers and the social media, as well as radio and TV. That is what we have managed to do because of the limited funding. Although I would appeal to government to make sure that in the next financial years, they allocate more money to the meteorology function, so that when we are having a day like this, we do much more visible activities for the general public and also the policymakers. I have told you the importance of meteorology. If you don't show that importance, the economy can even collapse the moment you measure wrongly, and the people's health and safety is affected. So we would like to appeal to government to try to see if they can increase the funding so that our activities done like on a day like this go deeper than a few activities that we are doing because of the limited funding. But I also wanted to add on what my sister has said, some of the impacts that we have had because of wrong measurements in some places. Actually, I have an example of a factory which produces milk. They had a problem with one of their measuring pressure devices, which was showing a wrong pressure measurement because it had not been calibrated. That factory lost milk worth about 3.5 billion because the milk which was coming out was being measured at the wrong temperature and the wrong pressure, and so the milk got spoiled. So you can see how far it can be. 3.5 billion loss for a company is not simple. Had they done all the calibrations in time, they would not have lost that kind of thing. And also, areas in legal methodology where complaints come in, we have a mechanism for even taking people to court. If we find somebody is playing around with measurements in our absence, we have a Department of Legal, and we have also a Department of Surveillance. They work together and they take the person to court, and you have a standards court, which helps us to quicken the process, and most of the wrongdoers are normally, they normally pass judgment against them, and either they pay fines, and some of them have actually been put in prison because of that. So illegal methodology is enforced because it is prevent cheating of the public and the consumers and the environment. And if you start playing around with the weights, with the flow in the petrol stations, you will be causing loss for others. So we can't allow it to go on, and so we have a legal department which will take you to court and they prosecute you.
Okay. And as we're summing up with our conversation this morning, I would also wish to get a comment from each one of you in regards to the significance of this day, and then moving forward, what would be the recommendations for those in the weighing business, especially traders who actually, trade and weigh goods, let's say groceries and the like. I'll start with you.
Thank you very much. I would urge the public, most especially the traders, to embrace measurements. Measurements are very essential in all human activities. For the traders, you are urged to use the correct measures. Let's get away from the business of using buckets, of using basins. They are recommended trade types that are supposed to be used by all traders, which will ensure accuracy and value for money for both the customers and the traders themselves. Thank you.
Okay. And then
on the side of the scientific and industrial methodology and the areas of calibration, I would encourage anybody who is doing measurements in their activities to make sure that their equipment is brought to UNBS for calibration. Once it is calibrated, we put a sticker to show that it is calibrated, to guide whoever comes and sees the equipment that actually this equipment is measuring properly because it has been calibrated. It will save you a lot of problems. It will save you from cheating yourself. It will save you from making substandard products. It will save you from cheating others. And most activities which require calibration are not directly enforced like the ones of legal methodology. They are self-enforced. It is you to know that this equipment is helping me if it is measuring accurately, so you should be bringing it for calibration so that once you do an activity, then that activity is authentic. However, there are some other areas like manufacturing where it is indirectly enforced. For example, you cannot put a product on the market if it does not have the UNBS quality mark, if it's not certified. And you cannot certify your product if you find the equipment is not calibrated. So indirectly we enforce the calibration for manufacturing because we don't want you to produce substandard goods that will harm the public. In the health sector, even the Ministry of Health requires that equipment you use in the hospital for measuring must be calibrated. We even have a department under health which is doing some calibration of the health equipment. So you must use calibrated equipment to make sure you are doing proper measurements and to avoid misdiagnosis. If you measure wrongly, you will diagnose wrongly. You will measure somebody's temperature and say they have fever or they don't have fever, but which is the equipment, which is faulty. Like I give you an example of pressure. So why are we saying that we measure today for a sustainable tomorrow? It's because we must plan properly by measuring. After measuring and getting accurate measures of quantities that we are using to plan, then we can know that we have a better future. Okay. Whether it is materials, people who are in material manufacturing, in minerals, in what, once you measure properly, then you plan properly for the future which is coming. Then you can make sure that the economy grows, which also is measurable. You can make sure people are actually getting a better portion of the economy and their health is safeguarded because they have done the right measurements with the accuracy that is required by metrology.
Well, Measure Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow is the theme for this year's World Metrology Day. The 20th of May annually is celebrated and commemorated as a day for metrology. And well, my two guests this morning have been having Mr. Deus Mubangizi, who is the Manager National Metrology Laboratories, and Ms. Josephine Nachiayune, who is the Acting Manager Legal Metrology at the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, as we are looking at commemorating the World Metrology Day, which is today, the 20th of May. Again, thank you very much, gentlemen and madam, for joining us this particular morning. And for all of you, our viewers who have been watching us from the time we kick-started off the show at 6:30 a.m., all I am wishing you is a blessed and a fruitful, productive Monday. Till tomorrow morning, have a good one.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.